was a writer of crime fiction and horror. He was writing his first draft, and he wanted peace and quiet, so he rented out a quiet cabin in the woods for 6 months. His story was based in a cabin in the woods, so he thought it only right that he wrote at least his first draft in the cabin. Things began to get very weird. He was just after finishing writing his first chapter, which was about a sheriff calling to ask about any teenagers who might have passed through, as they were terrorizing the neighbors. There was nothing that weird about him writing it at first. It was what happened afterwards really took Tony by surprise. Within 5 minutes of the chapter being written, there was a knock on the door, and a sheriff was standing outside asking did Tony see any teenagers pass through, as they were causing trouble down in the town. Tony was shocked and told him no, he didn't. He felt like telling him about what he had just wrote, but he just told him he was writing a novel and left it at that. The sheriff smiled at him and said, "That sounds really great, sir. Good luck with your novel. And remember, it's the start and the ending that's most important." He gave a smile and walked away. Tony felt a weird energy come off the sheriff as he walked away. The next couple of months didn't have any other weird coincidences, and Tony was starting his last chapter where a guy living in a cabin gets killed by a crazy killer. Tony had just finished the last line, which was, the killer had put a knife to the man's throat and slit it open. A few minutes later, Tony heard footsteps behind him. He got a start when he saw the sheriff standing right in front of him holding a knife, and he just stared at Tony, saying, "Remember I told you, it's the start and ending that's most important." Tony thought of the last line of his book and realised this sheriff knew what his first chapter was about, and he must have known what his last one was about, and he was about to kill him. Now his words about the beginning and ending made sense. As the man swung the knife for Tony, he ducked and grabbed the knife and stabbed the man who he had paid to give him 2 visits at the cabin. First visit to coincide exactly at the time Tony finished his first chapter, and the second visit coinciding with him finishing his last chapter. Tony smiled looking at the man in a pool of blood, wondering what the man had actually thought of him paying him $500 to call and do his first few lines, and then the grand finale a couple of months later with a knife. Tony wondered had the man any clue or any suspicion he would ever grab the knife off him and kill him with it. Tony was pleased with his work, always believing truth is always stranger than fiction.